I was a little bit skeptical, to be honest with you. I was like, who am I really going to reach? Who's a demographic? I just feel like it's a lot more of the younger side.
When you're deciding on a social media strategy, it's hard to know which platform to focus your attention on, especially when you're considering one that's relatively new and untested. But sometimes you have to take a leap.
People were like actually interested. And so I continued posting and I ended up getting 2 or 3 of my biggest clients today from TikTok.
You're listening to Personal Injury Mastermind, the show where elite personal injury attorneys and leading edge marketers give you exclusive access to growth strategies for your firm. Many of our guests in the past have talked about the value of social media, but we've never had on a TikTok specialist. Taly Goody's posts not only reach millions of people, but she's even met some of her biggest clients through the site. I asked if she'd sit down with me to share advice for using TikTok to build a brand and clientele, as well as her experience founding her firm, Goody Law Group. I'm your host, Chris Dreyer, founder and CEO of Rankings.io. We help your personal injury law firm dominate first page rankings with search engine optimization. An important first step for any lawyer is to really understand the people around them. So let's get to know our guest. Here's Taly Goody, founder of Goody Law Group.
My journey starts back in college. I always say I'm not one of those people that knew I wanted to be a lawyer from the age of 10 or 13, never had even an idea until I went to, I was in college, started an internship on Capitol Hill. It was my last year in college, so it was really exciting. It was during Obama's inauguration, and it kind of sparked an inspiration for me to look into politics. And so initially getting into the whole legal field was kind of sparked by the politics idea. And then once I went into law school, I kind of pivoted and decided to focus on becoming a lawyer because things change, your ideas change on what you want to do as you go through each stage. So that's kind of how I'm here today. But I had no idea I wanted to get into personal injury law. I'll throw that out there.
Yeah, it's interesting. In preparation for our conversation, I was like heavily watching all your TikToks because they're very informative. And I think there was one video where you said something about like the attorneys that are frequently unhappy maybe have chose the wrong area of the law. So maybe you could expound on that.
Yeah, I feel like, right when I got out of law school, I fell into a job. I was just like kind of desperate to find a job. It was tough to get jobs back then. So I was like, okay, I got a job working in art law. And initially I wanted to go into entertainment law. So I was like, this is kind of a good segue for me to eventually get there. And so I started and it was great. But I knew, within the first few years that this wasn't something that I could see myself being in forever. And I could just sense that if I stuck around or if I kept, if they stayed in like the area of law that I was in, I might not be happy. And I've encountered a lot of people when I was going through the process of people saying, don't become a lawyer, don't become a lawyer. I don't think there was one person that told me to become a lawyer when I would tell them. Right. And, they would say, you only can be successful if you graduate from the top 14 law schools. You're going to be in so much debt. Don't even try. There was just so much negativity. And so, I know that that's just kind of how the case is now. And so that's kind of why I mentor people at the same time. Like I try to tell them like, hey, it's not, yes, it's tough. I don't try to sugarcoat it, but I'm like, there are benefits to it. And finding the right area of law is the number one most important thing, because you can be super unhappy depending on where you're working. You're working in a horrible firm that's just, working you to the ground. You don't see any benefit from it. You're not really working for yourself. I think those are really big factors in your happiness level and the area that you're practicing it.
That's fantastic. And I like that, so not only that you didn't know, but you like went for it. Right. And then you found this area of PI you love, but not only that, within 5 years of passing the bar, you set up your own firm.
Yeah.
So, did you always want to be a business owner? What led you to take the leap, not only go to law school, but like then to go out and start your own firm?
Yeah. It was, I think at the 4-year mark where I was like, I can take two roads here. I can either find a new job and start over at a firm, start like as a baby lawyer or start as, just like as a minion and work myself up, or I can start my own practice. And, I was like, okay, what should I do? There's a riskier move, the safer move. And at the job that I was in, I was, making a comfortable salary. I was good. I could see room to grow, but I told myself I feel comfortable with what I'm in with like salary wise resources. I think I'm just going to take the leap and open my own law firm. So I think I've always kind of known I wanted to be a leader, business owner deep down. I just didn't know it would be as a law firm owner.
One of the things I think it's really interesting about your story too is, you have so much education out there that you're constantly sharing like what you learn. And I think I've heard this saying, but it immediately makes me think of you as like this competency builds confidence. Gain more competency and you're like, you know what, I can do this. Like, did the confidence come with that?
Yeah, I think so. And I think people always ask me like, how much time did you spend preparing before you started your own practice? And I said, look, I made the decision in the summer of 2019. I gave my boss notice by like midsummer. He was super supportive. He's like, that's great. I'm really happy for you. I think this is going to be a great move.
Love that.
And then I had like 1 month before I was going to leave my firm. That's when I started like doing all the like business formation side of things, getting my actual entity up. And then that was it. And then I just dove in. And I always tell people, hey, I think the best way to learn is to just go for it. Just do it. By actually doing something, that's when you're learning versus, okay, I'm going to spend 6 months reading a book. I'm not saying that's not going to be helpful, but I think the best way is also just to get hands-on in it, because that's when you learn, okay, you make a little mistake, that's not going to work. Modify it for the next time. Or this really worked for me. I'm going to keep doing this, So I think having a good, somewhat of like a base foundation is very necessary getting into your own practice, but be open to be flexible to learn on the job.
Let's shift over to kind of like operations and, you're wearing a ton of hats. You as you grow, you shed more of those hats. Let's talk about like, what are the things that you really enjoy? What are the things that bring you the most passion in terms of the operation and doing the legal work?
Yeah, I think for me, I really like the business side of things, running my firm, and also just getting clients. I think that's my favorite, like talking to new clients, intake. I like the legal side, but I really like the business side, probably just a little bit more than the legal side. So for me, that's something that I want to keep building and then maybe bringing on more people to help with the legal side. So that would be my ideal goal eventually. I do have help right now. I have an assistant that helps me, but eventually, maybe within the next year, hopefully I'm going to expand a little bit more.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. It's always interesting, that book, The E-Myth, with Michael Gerber, the technician, the manager, and the owner. It's like we all kind of experience these different growths where like we're wearing all these hats and you get to shed one. When I started, my least favorite was just accounts receivable and like billing clients and following up when credit cards bounce or whatever. I couldn't stand it. So like when I started, I was like, that's the first one I'm trying to get rid of.
Right. See, luckily for PI, we're contingency based, so we don't have to worry about that. It's just whenever we settle a case, we got our payment and then we move on. But yeah, I can feel that.
Love it. Let's talk about some of those obstacles, right? I had Bob Simon on recently. He was hilarious. He's really funny and great. And there's just so many of these misconceptions like, oh, I got to have this expensive office. I got to have, business cards and I got to do this and do that. So like, what are, so many people think it's too expensive and have this misconception about starting your own law firm, but could you kind of walk us through that a little bit?
Yeah. You could start a law firm and not spend any money. It could be as low as just paying for a phone bill. Of course, you're going to want a phone bill. You're going to want an email. You're going to want a way to fax. And I fax through my email. So it's not like I have a fax machine. And, really, I have a nice home office. I do have a shared workspace I can go into when I have clients or depositions or meetings. But mainly, like, the legal industry is shifting to virtual law firms, and it's making it easier for anybody to open their own practice. You don't have to be this fancy law firm having 10 attorneys, 20 assistants. You could be simply like a small firm, have one assistant, one paralegal, two attorneys. And it's nice because I think it's becoming more desirable for attorneys to want to open their own practice because they're working for themselves. And it's become a lot easier to bring in your own clientele just with the technology that we're all, that the world's shifting towards.
I couldn't agree more. And the COVID one, it had such a boom in technology for legal specifically. Before it was like Zoom, and I know you've probably seen like the cat filter and some of those, but like technology ramped up. And previously, as a marketer, I would try to set up Zoom meetings and it was like challenging because individuals didn't know the technology, but now everybody is on Zoom and it's just so much more convenient and efficient. Whether you're just starting out or you've been in the game for decades, lead generation is crucial. We all know that social media can be great for this, but one platform you may not have considered is TikTok. I asked Taly why she chose to pursue this route and how effective she has found the platform.
So like I said, I switched into personal injury. I didn't have this background. I didn't have this huge network of attorneys switching in, so I was kind of this new attorney. Everyone already had their referral sources, their clientele. And so I had to get creative and think of a new way to bring in clients. And so TikTok had just kind of started taking off. It was before the pandemic. So it wasn't still that big of a deal. I feel like once the pandemic hit, it became way more used. So I decided, okay, first of all, I knew I was going to do a business Instagram, but that's so like standard and everybody has one, but I was like, all right, I'll get on TikTok, try it out. I was a little bit skeptical, to be honest with you. I was like, I don't know. Like, this just seems like, who am I really going to reach? Who's a demographic? I just feel like it's a lot more of the younger side, like children, teens. But anyway, I got on there, started posting, and I noticed that some of my videos started taking off. And they were videos just about me sharing how I became a lawyer or sharing some tips about it. And then I even started doing some that are like tips on personal injury. And those ones started taking off. People were like actually interested. And so I continued posting and I ended up getting 2 or 3 of my biggest clients today from TikTok. I'm very happy with that. It's great. I love TikTok. I think it is becoming a bit saturated now, just to be honest with everybody. I don't know, like I haven't gotten a really big client recently, just gonna throw it out there. But when I first got on there, it was, you have a huge reach. And I think there's still a lot of potential for a reach. I just don't think it's as good as it was at the beginning, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And talking about your impressions, like when I was researching for our conversation, I mean, some of your videos have over 1 million views. Total, like every single video on average has a substantial amount of views. And when I compare that to say like YouTube's substantially saturated. There's a lot of competition, but the thing that I like, and I want to talk about strategies and things, but one of the things I like is it can be your platform for original thought leadership. And then you can chop it up, put it on Reels on Instagram, throw it on YouTube, kind of use it as like the source of original content and then use it for all these different manners. Let's talk about content creation. I get on there and I'm like, what is this trend? Like, because the trends change. Like, how do you stay up to date? What's your process for creating content on there?
Honestly, my favorite way to create content is kind of in 2 ways. The first way is just when I'm randomly, end of the night, kind of just winding things down and I'm scrolling through TikTok, I'll be on the FYP page, which is the For You page. And that's where usually the semi to most viral videos are played, just in case people don't know what TikTok is. You can see things that people post that you follow, or you can see just random people's posts, which is the For You page. So I'm kind of scrolling and that's where you see the trends. For example, you see like the trending sounds, you see the trending videos. And, people get creative. They might take one trending video. And I've seen a lot of doctors, lawyers, professionals switch it up so it matches their profession, where they're either sharing a couple tips with the trend, or they're doing it just to match their profession. You know what I mean? So it's cool. So that's one way I kind of get ideas and I'll save them. So when I'm ready to film, I come back to it and I script what I'm going to do and then I film. The other way is just, I think you need to have your own style on top of trends. It's known, like if you're just going to do trends, it's not really gonna, I think your page is just going to be like, you're just following the trends, but you're not providing anything of value separate from the trends. So you want to be able to find something that, you know, your followers like that you do. So I started with just like sharing tips, and I would just use maybe popular sounds in the background, things like that, just to make it a little bit more hip. And, you know, you could talk or you could point. It really, there's like different things you can do. And I think for me, it just took a matter of trial and error to see what videos worked, what videos don't work, and what people like. And then from what you see from people commenting on videos, those give you the ideas for your next videos, because there'll be like a lot of the same questions like, oh, but what about this? And then you're like, oh, that's great. I should make a video about that. And then you create a video on that topic.
That's excellent. So you have like a feedback loop. So then that supplies your next topics. What about, is it just you? Do you have like a videographer? Are you like setting up the stand and working off of your Apple phone? Like kind of tell us, like, how are you? I saw there's a couple funny ones. I don't even know the name of the music, but like there was one where you're sitting in a chair and it had like this weird music, and then it was like further away, and then it was but I was like, you definitely had assistance there, and I'm just wondering, like, how do you produce these? Or is it just you on a, like, how are you doing it?
So, I have my husband is the one that does the ones that are like the one that you were just talking about. He was standing kind of further away, so he'll help me here and there when I need it. I usually just do all of them on my own. I have my ring light that has a stand in it, and I set up my iPhone, and then I just go from there. And then I take time and I edit my videos. I think TikTok has a more user-friendly way of editing your videos versus Reels, IG Reels. So I know that there's like people have a preference. I know a lot of people that create their videos on Reels and then transfer them to TikTok, but I do it the other way. I create everything on TikTok and then I transfer to Reels. So that's another tip, is to repurpose your videos for both Instagram Reels and TikTok Reels.
Nice.
Or TikToks, not Reels. Yeah.
My team that's listening, they'll probably crack up at this, but I do everything in Paint, that old school program, just to kind of troll my team and really look original. They get a kick out of it. But, I am very much a noob when it comes to TikTok and even Reels. Like, I've got a team that does like Repurpose House. We use that, and a social media manager. But like, explain to me, let's talk about the platform itself. Mm-hmm. Have you experimented? Do they even offer, like paid boosting, like you can Facebook boost a post or Instagram boost? Do they have any ways to extend your reach? Maybe not necessarily viral, to kind of push it to more people. Do they have anything like that?
They do. I think I've seen sponsored posts similar to Instagram. Like, so when you're scrolling through the FYP, I'll see randomly sponsored or advertisements and things like that. Now, I don't know if they perform as well as if they do on Instagram. I've never experimented with those myself personally, but I definitely see them where it's a sponsored post or an advertisement, basically.
Taly's TikToks cover a wide variety of topics, from PI advice to life as a business owner. One area that has proven particularly popular, though, is her advice to young and aspiring lawyers. So I asked Taly how she found this niche and why she felt it was so important to share this sort of information around motivation.
Yeah, I think like right when I got on TikTok, that's when I started experimenting with the different types of content that I put out there. And so most of my stuff is divided between the mentorship, and then I do some PI stuff here and there too. So I started posting things, and I just noticed that there's so many people that want advice. And I still get, aspiring lawyers writing, what about the LSAT? And I'm like, look at my LSAT playlist. I get a lot of the same questions, but there's so many people that I was so surprised that really come to TikTok for help, or to help them find their path in life. And I know when we were going through the process, or at least when I was, there wasn't anything like TikTok. I had to go on Google and I had to find, let's look up stuff on Google. And there was always negative things on there, So for me, I feel like by doing this and by sharing my experience, and sharing some positivity, of course, keeping it real, it helps people. And that's all. It's really just like, I like giving back to aspiring lawyers and helping them out. And I've actually hosted some mock law school classes, and they've done really well. I had 500 people sign up for my first one.
Wow.
And then from 500, we had 150 people actually show up. But I mean, that's still a good turnout, I think. So, I mean, for me, it's fun. I feel like I'm building authentic relationships. A lot of them reach out to me and go, thank you so much. I'm in law school now, and they'll email me. And, it's just nice to get those messages and say that I've helped them.
Yeah. So my good friend, Maria Monroy, who we both have in common. She's fantastic. And she said that at some of the conferences, individuals that come up to you and say, hey, I saw your videos on TikTok, which is just awesome.
It actually happened for the first time when I was with Maria. I was there, and then he was like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to see you. And I'm like, wow, I don't really feel like I'm that big of a deal, but thanks. I'm it's just exciting to see that people really like what I put out there. So it's a good feeling, and I try to do my best.
Absolutely. And it seems like too, that it could be a long-term play for potential referrals in the future,
yes.
Help and, get someone on that trajectory. And I like the other thing I wanted to mention was when you gave notice to your previous boss, he was really supportive, which is fantastic. Not burning the bridges, having the rising tides mentality, say, hey, maybe there could be potential referrals.
Yeah. And that's actually another thing about TikTok and just being on social media is I've met a lot of different lawyers from all over the country. And I've already, started referring them cases. They've referred me cases. So, I mean, it's great. I honestly think that social media, whether it's Instagram, TikTok, whatever you're using, is great. So if you want to build professional relationships, I always advise people to get on there. Clients, I mean, I think it's awesome.
Let's talk just a couple more questions on marketing, just in general, big picture. What's your view? Obviously you got into TikTok, but what's your view and overall, on how you think someone that starts up and founds their own firm should approach marketing and lead generation?
I think it's the most important thing because you want to keep your overhead low. You're not going to have a lot of money to spend on advertisement. So get on social media, put yourself out there, build your brand. The more and more you post about what you do, but also make it really authentic and tie in your own story so it doesn't seem super salesy. I think that's a number one thing. I try not to be like that because I just think it turns people off. They're like, okay, you're really pushing this on me. But, tying in your story and also showing them how you can help them and letting them know that you're a real human that's not just a lawyer. I think that really helps with your brand and showing people what kind of lawyer you'll be for them. So, and knowing that, whether or not you're getting a client that day from what you post, you're not necessarily going to, but you're always going to be in the back of that person's mind if they ever need a personal injury lawyer. Oh, wait a second. I remember they post things and I know that that's a PI lawyer. I'll reach out. So you never know who's going to reach out from social media.
Fantastic. Yeah. So it reminds me that no trust, right? So it's right. The likability, the trust factor, that can go a long way. So, how can people reach out to you, whether it's for cases or for advice, how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so I'd be happy to help anyone with any questions. You can send me an email. My email is Taly, and that's TALY @goodylawgroup.com. Or you can reach out to me on Instagram or TikTok. My handles are both Taly Goody ESQ on both.
Perfect. And I have one final question, Taly. Yeah. So, what's next for Goody Law Group?
What's next is we've just celebrated our 2 years in September. Congrats. So hoping to just expand more, get more clients. And I really want to focus a little bit more on my marketing and get some more videos up because it's been a little bit tough balancing everything and just doing everything on my own. So I think my goal is to be more consistent with my my video production, video posting on Instagram and on TikTok. But yeah, I think that's kind of where we're going. I'm very proud of the business so far.
Absolutely. You should be. So great having you on the show. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Chris.
Having a strong social media presence can do wonders for your practice, and Taly's use of TikTok is a perfect example of what's possible. I 100% agree with her advice that trial and error is key, though. You have to be dedicated, flexible, and most importantly, you just have to keep going. I'd like to thank Taly Goody from Goody Law Group for sharing her story with us, and I hope you gained some valuable insights from the conversation. You've been listening to Personal Injury Mastermind. I'm Chris Dreyer. If you like this episode, leave us a review. We love to hear from our listeners. I'll catch you on next week's PIM with another incredible guest and all the strategies you need to take your personal injury practice to the next level.